He was a prince, a warlord, a national hero, and one of the most feared men in human history. He impaled his enemies on towering spikes, left forests of corpses behind him, and inspired the legend of Count Dracula. But the truth is even more terrifying than the myth. This is not a vampire story. This is the real story of Vlad the Impaler, the man who turned bloodshed into legend and became immortal. Dracula. The name alone conjures images of fangs, flowing capes, and moonlit castles perched above misty forests. But behind the myth, there was a man. Not a vampire, but something far more terrifying. Vlad Dracula, Prince of Wallachia, feared by his enemies, revered by his people, and remembered not for what he drank, but for how his enemies died, impaled on towering stakes, left to rot in forests of death, displayed as a message to empires, born into betrayal, raised in captivity. He rose to power through sheer force of will, and ruled through horror so real it became legend. His story is not one of fantasy. It is carved into the very soil of Eastern Europe, and it still echoes today in blood and memory. To understand Vlad the Impaler, we must first go back to a time of chaos. The 15th century, Eastern Europe, Wallachia, a small volatile kingdom between Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Transylvania. A place caught between giants, crushed by war, and ruled by blood. Vlad was born around 1431, likely in Scarier, Transylvania. His father was Vlad II Dracula, a member of the Order of the Dragon, a Christian knightly order sworn to defend Europe against the Ottomans. Dracula means dragon in Latin, and so young Vlad became known as Dracula, son of the dragon. But his childhood was anything but noble. In 1442, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were taken as political hostages by the Ottomans. They were held for years, trained in war and language, but also surrounded by executions and cruelty. This captivity would scar Vlad for life. While Radu eventually sided with the Ottomans, Vlad never forgave them. He learned their ways so he could one day destroy them. And when his father and older brother were murdered by Wallachian nobles and political enemies, Vlad returned to claim what he saw as rightfully his: the throne. Vlad's path to power was anything but smooth. He first seized the throne of Wallachia in 1448, but his rule was brief. Just a few months. He was forced into exile and spent years gathering support from allies, mercenaries, and loyalists. But Vlad didn't just want power, he wanted revenge. In 1456, he returned with an army, and this time he took the throne for good. One of his first acts? He invited hundreds of Wallachian boyars, nobles who had betrayed his family, to a lavish feast. Then he had them all impaled or forced to march to their deaths, rebuilding a fortress. To Vlad, treachery was unforgivable. And impalement, that was his signature punishment. A long, sharpened stake was inserted through the body, carefully avoiding vital organs to prolong agony. The victim could suffer for hours, even days. And Vlad didn't hide these horrors. He displayed them. Spikes lined the roads. Fields became forests of the dead. Why? To terrify, to control, to send a message. Disloyalty would be met with unspeakable pain. This wasn't madness, it was strategy. Vlad's rule was marked by one thing above all: fear. But it wasn't only his enemies who suffered. He turned his wrath on the corrupt, the lazy, the disloyal. Stories tell of Vlad placing a golden cup in a public square, unguarded. No one dared steal it. He burned entire villages that refused to pay taxes. He butchered beggars to rid his land of poverty. And then came his greatest enemy, the Ottomans. In 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, the man who conquered Constantinople, sent a massive army to crush Vlad. What they found was unimaginable. As they approached the capital, they rode into a forest of the Impaled, 20,000 corpses rotting on stakes. The stench was overwhelming. The message was clear. Vlad would rather destroy everything than surrender. Though outnumbered, Vlad used guerrilla tactics, night raids, psychological warfare, scorched earth. And while he couldn't hold out forever, his resistance humiliated the empire. But his enemies were not only foreign. Back home, rival factions, including his brother Radu, now loyal to the Ottomans, undermined him. Vlad was captured by Hungarian forces and imprisoned for over a decade. And yet, even in exile, his legend only grew. In 1476, Vlad briefly reclaimed the throne, but his return was short-lived. Later that year, he was killed in battle, his head sent to the Sultan as proof. He was buried, likely at the Snagov monastery, though his tomb has never been conclusively found. And that's where the line between man and monster begins to blur. You see, even during his life, Vlad's reputation spread across Europe. German pamphlets painted him as a sadistic killer. Others called him a hero, Europe's defender against the Muslim East. But centuries later, a new figure would rise, Count Dracula. In 1897, Irish author Bram Stoker published Dracula, a Gothic novel about an immortal vampire from Transylvania. Stoker likely borrowed Vlad's name and some of his darkness, but his Dracula was fiction. Vlad was not, and while Stoker's vampire sleeps in a coffin, the real Dracula ruled from a throne of blood. Today, Vlad Tepes is remembered in different ways. In Romania, he is a symbol of national pride, strong, ruthless, and incorruptible. In the West, he is the embodiment of horror. But perhaps the real horror lies not in the myth, but in how close it is to truth. So, who was Vlad the Impaler? A monster, a savior, or something in between? He was forged in violence, ruled with terror, and died in legend. But one thing is certain. The real Dracula didn't need fangs to drink blood. He only needed a stake. Thank you for watching. If this story chilled your spine and opened your mind, subscribe now. We explore the darkest truth behind the myths you thought you knew. Leave a comment. Was Vlad a hero of his people, or a tyrant beyond redemption? Hit the like button, share this with fellow history hunters, and remember, history is full of monsters, but some of them were real.